Welcome to People Love Process. Hopefully you watched the short invite video for our third creative challenge, which was to create a badge design. If you don't want to miss future creative challenges, just subscribe to my People Love Process YouTube channel. That way you'll see when those invite videos go out. And those are only like about 3 minutes long, give you all the details and the deadline for when designs are due. Now, I want to say this before we jumped into creating a badge, is that a lot of people don't always make those timelines for each creative challenges. That doesn't mean you still can't do the challenge and send it in. I'll just review it in an upcoming review video where I show the challenge and how I solved it, and then I share what other people have created. And we're going to do that in a little bit. I'll show you other badges people came up with, and I'll also review 2 other pieces of artwork that they couldn't make the original deadline for, but they still submitted. So that's great. So don't think, oh, I missed the deadline, I can't do it now. No, you can still do it, and I'll still review it. So make sure to go back and watch the other 2 challenges if you still want to do those. You can, and you can submit them, and I'll review them on the next time I review designs for whatever the creative challenge is specifically at that time. So that's always a good thing. I want to be here to help kind of review your designs whenever you submit stuff. In the same manner that I do for my daughter, who she used to work with me. She's no longer my employee. She's out on her own now, but we still partner together on projects and work on them. And I art direct her, and that's kind of the way I handle my reviews, is I just tell you what I think would make it stronger or work better in that regard. So over the years, I've created a lot of different badge designs, usually in the context of creating brand identity for my clients. That's what all these were for. Some of these were exploration projects. Others are my own personal client projects. But I always like creating a badge design because it's more narrative based. It's more than just a brand mark and the name of the company. It usually gives a little more information and somewhat tells a story of sorts, and we're going to go over that as well. So in this movie, I want to take you through the badge design I created for this challenge, and then afterwards, we'll take a look at what you, the audience, created as well. This was going to be fun. I always enjoy doing this, and with that said, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, the theme for the badge I'm going to create is based off of a debate team. Now, when I was in high school, they had debate teams, and I was on one debate team, and we never had T-shirts or anything like that, never got that big, but this is for a debate team. So I started thinking about what could I use to kind of almost not really brand the debate team, but come up with something that looked branded, but it would reflect who the debate team is. We didn't really have a name. It was just the debate team. So, or they didn't have a name. It was just the debate team. So I started thinking of what do you do when you debate? Well, a lot of it is rhetoric. It's rhetorical arguments and making positions on different points. So that made me think of the term rhetoric. And rhetorician is the official name, is shown in the dictionary here. And so that's what I'm going to play off of for the verbiage aspect of the badge design I'm going to be doing. But as I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to think of a name I could give it. And that's what led me to the character. I think I'm going to do an owl. So this was my original sketch. Really tiny thumbnail sketch, not big at all. And then I might tighten it up a little bit just to figure out how it's going to be symmetric, but have a head that's asymmetric, not really looking straight towards you. So this means we only necessarily need to build one side of this design once we get to that point. And this is a refined sketch I did. I tried to make it so that owl's looking at the viewer of sorts rather than off to the side or something like that. But then I started experimenting because I'm going, well, you know, there's a lot of eggheads that debate, you know, people who usually, if it's in context of a college or a high school, They're usually the honor students, the ones who get the best grades. And I didn't really care about being an honor student when I was in high school. But okay, I'm going to go a little off the trail and tell a little story here just because it's funny. We had to take an elective class one year. I think I was a sophomore in high school. And one of the classes was psychology. So I said, yeah, I'll take that. I'll see what it's all about. And so we had to do a paper, and we could pick any topic. And so I decided to pick the topic of stress. And that's what I was going to write my paper on. And so what was the premise of my paper I came up with? And I forgot all about this until, it was like 4 years after I got out of art school. And out of the blue, I get an email from my old high school history teacher. No, that's right. My sister, Amy, was a teacher's assistant for him, and she was cleaning up his area and found a paper of mine behind a desk that had fallen there, and it was the report I did on psychology class, and my premise was I'm going to write the report under stress, so I waited till the night before it was due to write my paper. And that was my premise. I think the teacher gave me like a C plus or something like that, but it just caused me to laugh. So anyway, all that said, I don't know why I brought that up. I just thought of that off the top of my head. So that's a rabbit trail. Here I'm experimenting. Maybe I'm going to put a monocle on them, make them look a little more sophisticated, or that spark of an idea, the flame, or give them glasses. And I ultimately decide not to give them glasses because it makes it look too kind of librarian of sorts. So small drawings. This was really small, so you can see how big in context of the pencil when I drew this out. I usually like doing something small so I can see everything in one foul swoop as I'm working on it. And of course, I want to work out a refined sketch, and this is the one that I'll scan in with the flatbed scanner, place it in Illustrator. And in this case, we'll go ahead and set this to about 15%, lock the layers. And now with this this owl figure kind of established, I have to figure out what shape of a badge. So that's what we're going to do here. And I was thinking more horizontal rather than a perfect circle. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my graphic styles, select a pre-established graphic style here. I'll probably do 0.5. I think that's what this is. I'll go to ellipse tool because I'm just going to create an elliptical shape here like this. We'll go ahead and align it to our document like that. And I'm just going to distort it like this, like that. But I don't want a perfect elliptical oval shape. I want to manipulate it with the Bezier handles for these anchor points. So if I select this with the direct selection tool, I kind of want to make it be kind of a squash circle of sorts, or an oval that is. But notice when you use the direct select, you can only pull out from one side. So if I undo that, how do you pull out at the same time from both sides? You would think the most intuitive thing, because to get access to these Bezier handles, what tool are you going to use? Well, you're going to use the direct selection tool to do it. So you would think they would put a modifier key on this. So if I held the modifier key down and pulled out a handle on one side, it'd follow or reflect that same characteristic on the other. No, Adobe didn't implement it that way. So I'm going to show you how to do that, which I don't think is very intuitive at all. And it's a good example of them making decisions not based off of what would be the easiest way to do it. They kind of hide it. So if you select an anchor at the top, we'll select the anchor at the bottom like this. Then you have to switch tools. And this is the part that's unintuitive, in my opinion. You have to click on the scale tool. I don't know why they hid it here, but that's what you do. Select the scale tool, then go to a handle. And then if I start pulling the handle, notice it's going to do it on both sides, top and bottom here, and you just pull it over as far as you want. I think I want mine right about there. Then I'll go ahead and I'll select these two side anchor points. Again, we'll go back to the scale tool, and then I'm going to adjust these as well by dragging them up. I'm basically making a squashed, it's a rectangle, but like if you kind of do this kind of distortion on a square, they call it a squircle or something like that. That's kind of what we're doing here. So I'm just going to adjust it. So that's how you adjust both handles symmetrically using the scale tool, which, once again, in my opinion, they should have embedded this into the direct selection tool. It'd make way more sense and you wouldn't have to switch tools. So you're not really scaling, you're just adjusting Bezier curves, and you always do that with the direct selection tool. So why they didn't, I don't know. But that's basically the outer part of the badge I want to create. And then knowing I want to have type wrapping at the top and wrapping at the bottom, I want to kind of establish, okay, how far in do I want to do that? Let's see, what is this? This 5? We'll just go up to 1 point so you can see what it's doing here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of offset this a bit. So with this selected, we'll just go to Object, we'll go to Path, we'll go to Offset. And I want to do it on the inside, so I'm going to go negative. Let's try 45, see what that looks like. That's the right idea, but I want it more, maybe 54. And we'll preview it. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm establishing this is the area where I'll have type running on here. And I want the type pretty big, so if it's too close to the edge, it won't allow enough space. So this is how I would handle it. And then from this point, we'll approach the typography shortly. But the first thing I want to do is I want to work out the artwork for the owl. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and turn this on so we can zoom in here. And if you think in shapes, it makes things go extremely fast. So here I'm starting off with two rectangular shapes. This one, if I go ahead and fill it with a fill color, you can see it's on top. So I'll select this and we'll go to the Pathfinder and I'll just go minus front. I can go ahead and select this handle and I can just go remove that anchor, and then I can just direct select this, bring it over like that. And then all I have to do is round this off to however far I want it, something like that, to establish that. So if you think in shapes, it makes the process so much faster. You wouldn't want, I mean, you could go like this, click, like this, but I just think it goes faster using shapes at times. So anything I can build with shapes, I always do that, because shapes are more precise than working with the pen tool at times. Here on the eye, obviously, your drawing doesn't have to be perfect to form a perfect circle with the ellipse tool like that. And you can use other shapes to edit shapes. So if we started with the ellipse, we could create the rectangle. We could lop off the top of the eye. We could take two overlapping elliptical shapes, go intersect with Pathfinder, and then with this shape on top of the original eye shape, then we can just minus front to get what we need. So thinking in shapes is going to help you build your vector art. It's always going to be a combination using the pen tool and using shape building techniques. I rarely do all pen tool work on a design. If it's more organic and free flowing, yeah, I'll probably do more pen tool work in Illustrator, but whenever shapes come into play and I can use them, I always do that. Now, when I talk about thinking in shapes, it also makes creating more complex art harder. So, I mean, easier. So if we kind of nudge over here and I turn on these shapes, it was easy enough to create a shape like this, to establish what thickness I want, then copy it to bring it down here, coming out of the body, make a copy of it again like this, and align it with this angle right here. And by the way, this is where rotate comes into play. So if we just copy this again and I drag it over, keep in mind I have smart guides turned on. So when I hover over an anchor point, it says anchor, hover over path, it says path. That's Command U to toggle it on and off. And at times you want to toggle it off because it'll want to snap to things that are close to it. So I keep it on for this. I just hover over the anchor, snap it to an anchor like this, go to the rotate tool, set the orientation on this anchor, grab a side, bring it over until it snaps to the angle like that. And then all I did was position it where you can see it's positioned right here. So that's as easy as it gets, is thinking in shapes. But with all these rectangles, I can select all these rectangles like this, and I can go ahead and unite them like this. Then we can just go in, select all the anchor points we don't need, like this, and this one, and these two. Get rid of this, these, and this one, and just go remove because they're straight lines. It's not going to make any problems. Got one extra one there. We can get rid of that. So I have most of the basics already established here. And so all I have to do now is I just need to go ahead and adjust this. Now, because we're using smart guides, we can snap to the path itself. So I can select these two handles and just kind of slide it up until it aligns with where my drawing comes to an end like that. And then we can use the corner widget to do the rounding. So we can just select a corner, use the corner widget. And again, this just based off of what you want to do. I'll select this one because I wouldn't want this to be a perfect circle. So I'd do something like this, like 2.5 something. I'd go over here. I'd make this a little more, something like that. I'd take this and we'll go ahead and pull this one out. It's a bigger arch, so we'll do it more like that. And then this one, I want the wing to go right into the body. So I want this arch to come past the edge here, just because it'll look cleaner. So I'll do something like this, I think is fine. Select this one, and we'll go ahead and round this guy. Something like that. Looks good. And then on a design like this, you could take this and you can just round it off to get that edge of the wing. So that's how I'd build most of the wing parts, just like this. If I turn on this here, you can see these are the wing shapes we want to come down to here. And this is where, again, I'll just start off with rectangle shapes like this. I have this one to determine the bottom edge of all the wings. And so I'll go ahead and just clone that bottom shape, trim this. I'll go ahead and select this and trim the next one, and then take this last one and trim that. And then we can go back to the corner widget and we can just add that rounding of the wing like this. Now, because we're going to be building in strokes, I don't need these to be closed shapes. So this is where I'll go in with the scissor tool. I'll find where the anchor comes to here, and I'll just cut it there because we don't need this part up here. And then I can go ahead and cut this right about there. So all this we can just get rid of. And then on these, I'll do the same thing as it comes down to this anchor. Where is that? It's right there. So we'll cut it here. And on this one, again, I'll come up here where it says intersect. This is why I use Smart Guides. Get rid of that. And then the last one here, again, we'll cut here. And then as it comes up here, we can cut it here. So this is all we need to create that. Now, to create the inside shapes, where it shows the curves of the smaller parts, this is where you can just take the existing element, clone it, Command-C, Command-F. If you have, I don't keep this open because I find it gets in my way. The contextual taskbar, you can select a shape and click duplicate, or you can select this if you use keyboard shortcuts, which I still find faster than what they've tried to add it in with another pop-up. I can just select any shape like this shape, and I can just hit my F3 key, and that makes a copy of that shape. Then I can go ahead and select this anchor, slide it up, and align it wherever I want. I can take this anchor, delete it, and I can add those details in there. So it'll all be stroke-based because we're going to set a thickness for the stroke and expand it, because that's the easiest way to build a shape like this, is to build it with strokes. So this is how the artwork is set up with all strokes. The only thing that won't be strokes is the body. I just wanted to establish everything with the wings going off, and all of these are strokes. We've established a thickness on these strokes. It's all 4-point, and I have rounded corners just so it makes a nice round here. But ultimately, the shape that's the interior of these, the white background, as you can see here, that'll actually be the fill color, and everything that's a stroke will just be gaps showing through to the background color. So this is how I set it up. We have solid pieces or just fills, no strokes for the feet. We have the body here. I have this set up because I want this to be the gap going around the edge of the character's body in this case. And so I'll go ahead and expand all these. And to expand, you just select everything, go to Path, go to Outline Stroke, like this, and then you can go ahead and unite it. Then you'd want to go Release, like that. You might have to ungroup it, select the exterior shape, get rid of it, and all you have are these interior fill shapes. So it's a really easy way to build this type of art, handling it that way. So here you can see I have everything expanded, but one thing I didn't do previously is I like to go in and cut on shapes like this so it doesn't add anchor points to this side. And the end result, if you spend the time to do that, and I'm not going to walk through that, I cover that in other movies I've done on People Of channel, you can check those out, is just so you get really nice, clean base, in this case, black and white vector art. So all of these, again, are just independent shapes with just gaps in between them that were based off of the thickness of the stroke. And this is going to work really well. Now, this is before I rounded anything. So if I go ahead and I zoom in on the beak, you can see everything comes to a sharp point. That's what vector art is. Well, I take that back. I have rounded the bottom of the eye here. And that's where subtle rounding comes in. So this is when it's all sharp after you expand the strokes and go ahead and punch everything through to get to the black and white artwork ultimately. But this is where I'll go in, I'll add subtle rounds. So if you look at the beak before rounding, after rounding, this just makes it more custom. And I do this anywhere it comes to a dagger sharp point to add those subtle rounds in, just because I think it looks just so much better. If we go to the wing, here it is with all the sharpness, and then going in, adding those rounds, it just gives a lot more character, especially up here, adding these rounds on those top right corners of the insets of the wings. So that's how I established the base art we're going to use on the badge. Now comes the typography we want to use for this. And when I explore typography, the app I use on this machine, I use FontBook because it's not my workstation. On my workstation, I use a font manager application. works great. It's called Font Base. I think that's the name of it. And but in Illustrator, I'll just type out the word I want to use, so I can see what the letter forms look like on this. And you can see all these. The one I'm going to go with is this one down here. I think it's a little more sophisticated. This is too techy, but this is how I like to kind of pair type with the design I want to work on. So the two typefaces we're going to deal with, and I've included these because these are Google typefaces, so you'll be able to, well, this one is a freeware font that I've had for years. The bottom one is a Google typeface, but these are the two typefaces we're going to use. And so let's go back to our badge that we've established. So we inset this. I've just cut it with this scissor tool here and on the side just to separate the inset we did off the original shape. And this is what will flow our type in. This outside shape, I just made it a thicker stroke, colored it black, and the thickness on this is 10 points. So now we're going to go ahead and apply typography to this. So I'll select this path, and I'm going to go to the type tools, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to pull this out so you can see the different type tools here. We want to use type on a path, which is this third one here, almost like a T on a surfing down a wave of sorts. That's kind of what I think when I look at that. We're going to click on it. I'm going to go ahead and select this path and click on it. It's going to default to the font I had been using, which is this one. That's not the one we want, but we do want it to be centered. So we're going to center this like that. But notice it's going to be, it's kind of wonky, the type on a path. It's still not as intuitive. When I used freehand for 15 years, and their type on a path was so much easier to use. I mean, just brilliantly intuitive. This one's still kind of wonky. It's like, well, I said center. Why is it starting here in the center? That's not what I mean. Well, if you go here, you can pull this controller this way, and I always pull it all the way to the left, so it snaps to the end over here. And this one will never be quite at the end. And this is the part that's kind of frustrating because they've never really improved this. It still does the same thing after all these years. So I'll go back, and you have to keep your eyes on these because they do move at times as you do other adjustments, which I find kind of annoying. But I don't want, especially when you're using type to create badges, you don't ever want it to be on the baseline like this. But first, let's pick the right typeface. The typeface I want to do is, Death Mock, this one. And so I'll click it, and I don't want the Greek in there. I want it to be what I want it to say in this one, because it's a bird, an owl is technically a raptor. So we're going to call this debate team Raptor Rectoricians, like that. But I don't want it to be sitting on the baseline. So with it selected, just double click on the type icon in the toolbar. It'll open these controls. You can see its baseline. Switch it to center. This makes it so much easier. You can preview it. You can see it centers it on that type. It works really well to do it that way. And now all we have to do is just adjust the size and the spacing. So let's go to our type controls. Where do I have that? I think it's down here. Bring that up right here. Right now, our type is just 14.4, so I want to adjust that. So I'm going to go 65, make it a lot. That's right. Let's go ahead and select our type. There we go. And I'll go 65. Oops, wrong one. I was supposed to put it over here. My bad. 65. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. That's too big, I think. So let's go down. Maybe that's not too bad. That still looks a little big. Let's see. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show options. I'm going to go even smaller. Let's go down to this doesn't matter. We're going to do spacing. I want to space these out. They're too tight. So let's go 50, see what that looks like. Oh yeah, that's looking good, but I think we need more, so I'm gonna. And this is probably where a typophile is going, no, don't do that. Don't distort the type. You know, my rule for design is it might break a rule, but if it looks better, why not do it? So on this case, I don't want to drastically distort type, but I'm going to go ahead and just see, because I want to go down a little further. Something like that. What I don't like is where these two characters kind of hit. So this is where I'll adjust my spacing. By the way, we're a little too zoomed in. Let's zoom out just a little bit, like that. And this is where I'll go in and I'll focus in on this and I'll move the spacing between these characters so they're not fusing together. And then I'll adjust other ones if I might want it to be a little tighter. There, I think over here, the I and the A, this is where I'll separate those a little bit, like that. Maybe on the next one between the A and the and. And on a flat line, you wouldn't probably do this, but on a curve, you have to pay attention to this stuff, like that. Another thing I'll do here is at times I'll go in and you have to have your rulers on to pull out a guide, but I'll drop a guide right where it comes down here and just see if it's still matching pretty good on each side. And I think it is. Now, if I select this, those endpoints haven't changed after doing those. So I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and do the bottom here. So I'm going to select this, select type on path, and I'll go ahead and click on it. Notice it's going to default to upside down. That's normal, but we don't want to actually want it centered. We'll do the same thing where I pull it all the way to the left. We'll pull this one all the way to the right. And then this is the part that I think is a little unintuitive, is you have to grab the handle that you can't really see because it's over a letter form, and you have to pull it up so it's reading the right way, but this is still a baseline. So this is where I double click on the type tool, changes to the center. You can preview it, click OK. We have the wrong typeface, so we're going to go in here and use this secondary typeface we established, which is Sierra Condensed Bold, like that. And on this one, we're using the sizing we did above. We want this a lot smaller since it's a secondary. So I'm going to type in 35. Actually, let's go ahead and type out what our message is. It's kind of like a slogan, I think, for the debate team, where ideas take flight. That looks pretty good, but I think we need to adjust the spacing quite a bit. This might be too much. Oh no, that's not that bad. Even more. So 134. Maybe a little more. That looks good. I think I'm even going to make them just a hair wider. Yeah, that looks good. So that's how you can do type on a path. The key is use the centering. It makes it so much easier. And then when you're doing spacing, let's say you have a border here and it's like a rim going around your badge, then all you have to do is measure from one line to the next line and then find the dividing line in half, and that's where you would build your path to wrap your type on. So it makes kind of spacing out your type so much easier if you kind of handle it that way. We're going to go ahead and put this back down into our palette down here, go back to layers. So that's how I would work out in this case. We'll get rid of these guides. We don't need these guides anymore. Get rid of this one. So that's how I'd work out my typography. And then the secondary typography, this is just like things that reinforce what the concept is of sorts. And so if I turn it on, debate squad, hoot, argue, and win. Some inline detail, just to add a little more interest. I thought an inline and another line kind of going across the center kind of encapsulates everything nicely on this design. And then for that added touch of concept, that spark of inspiration, which is part of all debate teams where they come up with the rationale for making their argument. So we did that. And I think this is going to work really good. Now, when it comes to coloring's fun because it can be any color you want. This is just black and white. And if we go ahead and we're going to color it right now, black and white, we could make this any color we want. Maybe they want it a green like that. So one color designs are always awesome. They always work really well if the background's a light color. So if it was black, you could do red on black. White on black, I think, would look better, or an off-white even looks better on a dark color, in my opinion. So you could do it as a one color. I like to explore color. And yes, I know there's all the generative color exploration, Illustrator now. I don't find it super useful because I like thinking about color on my own rather than letting an algorithm do it for me, because ultimately it's just going to come with a raw color and I need to dial it in anyway. So I might as well just think about it myself. So I usually set up a grid like this and then I explore color options. So we'll just do the first three here. So we'll zoom in like this. So on the darkest color, I do want a dark color. So I'll use that. Maybe this will be this. So almost like the Lakers color, purple and gold, that goes good together. Here's another one. It's like a maroon and like a gray. I think this is going to look more collegiate. So if this is for a college, that would work really good. And this one, you have a dark kind of a blue and a silver type color. Always a great combination like that. So I wanted to keep it simple and use simple colors. Now, all of these, I kind of preferred this one, the bottom right, the most. So that's ultimately the color that I went with. And again, especially in context of like high school, they don't have huge budgets for anything. And so this is a good example of using a garment color to reflect the color I figured out and just do it in a one color. I think this still looks really good and works really well in that way. So there's a few more things I wanted to go over. So we're going to go here and we're going to go to this file. I just realized my tabs aren't showing up. I don't know why. I must have hit a key and got rid of those. But when it comes to badge designs are distinctly more narrative than a logo design. You might be creating a brand identity for a client. You have a logo mark if it's modular, and you have logo type that goes with it. Sometimes it might have an embedded byline or a slogan. I usually create secondary assets that do that if a client wants it, because I never think it should be embedded with the primary branding. But in this respect, a badge design is a great secondary brand graphic because it can tell more of a story, because you have more narrative involved in it. So all you have to do is figure out what design you want to do. This shows the thumbnail on this design. It's this really small. Literally, when I say thumbnail, it's about a thumbnail size in terms of a drawing. And what is this? Well, that just represents where this bear is going to be that has antlers on it. But my badge shape is going to be this. So think graphically. I want it to be a badge shape. Once you establish what badge shape you want, you can inset off of the very outermost of that badge shape to create the area you can wrap type in. In this case, type will wrap in the top and around the sides here. You have your main element. In this case, it's the bear with the antlers. You can have additional line work. I want something cutting horizontally so I can have secondary type in that. It's important, but not as important as the primary type, as you're going to see. But the point of a badge is it gives you both more textual narrative, but it also gives you more visual narrative. And on this one, this goes distinctly with this brand, and the primary type here is Wild Oregon. Now, I live in Oregon, and we have a lot of cool mountains around here people can go hiking and mountain biking on. So that's what this badge is. It's for Wild Oregon Cascade Adventure Group. And think of it as that would be your primary type. You can have secondary type. Secondary type would be Mountain Explorer. You could have tertiary type. This is all the type that will wrap around the edge of the design. And this just reinforces the thematic qualities of what this group does and where they're located. Pacific Northwest, Unrestrained, Beast Mode, and the Great Outdoors. You can have bonus type. Bonus type is like founded in or established or Inc. or LTD, etc. It just reinforces the overall design. And of course, design elements. You can add stars in here to break up that type and add a secondary kind of outline here. So once you've established what your design is, your narrative design and the visual narrative, then you can explore color. And this is where it gets fun, because once you have a design like this and you want to explore color, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take everything that's the darkest color and I'm going to make it kind of, well, I don't know if I'll use that. Let's see. What colors do we have here? I think I want to change this. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pick 7. We'll get 100% on the magenta. And you can see the live color changing. That is one thing they've changed in Illustrator that I really like. That looks good. So that's one color we've established here. We'll go ahead and color our swatch that way. And now on this one, we don't want an outline. But I'm thinking I'm going to create more of a cream type of color. So not a lot of magenta. We'll just add 10. We want some yellow in there, of course. So we'll add 30. And then I want it to be a little muted. So we're going to add 25 black. And this gives us this kind of cream color here. So this is where I'll select elements like this. I'll color that this color. All these will be that color. Like this. I think this could be that same cream color. And I think that looks pretty good. Although I think our kind of color here is a little too light. So what I'm going to do, and notice I didn't make a global color. Otherwise, I could just edit the global color. So I kind of goofed up there. Probably not that dark. Let's try 50. I think that looks good. So I can select everything that's this color like that and just sample that. And I think that looks pretty good. So you can do a lot of color exploration. Here's another one where we use a dark kind of purplish blue and a gold. That looks pretty cool. Here's this one where it's more wild, almost like hunter orange here in Oregon. That's used a lot. And notice on this, I just realized I forgot to do some here, is on the detail of the mountains, I wouldn't want these white or on his nose, so I'd color it this brown. And by the way, I'm violating my own rules. This is why you want to make global colors. So if I drop this in here, double click and go global, let's go ahead and recolor all of these the global color now, because it has to be global in order to take shapes that are in the mountains here. We'll color it this, and then we'll go to color, the color palette, and we'll set this to 30% tint of that color, just so those mountains kind of fall back in the distance and don't come forward so much. So that's what I forgot to do. But ultimately, these were the colors I settled on. I think these work great. It's going to work really good in a one color format, obviously. And then if you put it in the context of what the group does, you know, mountain biking, hiking, and that's why badges are so great in terms of telling a narrative. Now, I want to jump in and show what people submitted for this challenge. Let's go here. Again, not sure how I turned off my my tabs. Okay, so the first one in Anis Latawish, I don't know if I pronounced that last name right, but he basically sent me his work file. So I'm just going to zoom in because there's a lot of stuff here, and he was just exploring, trying different things. And so I think that's kind of cool. One thing I noticed is he's doing a lot of these grids to figure stuff out. That's fine, but I want to show you a quick trick, because it's a lot faster in doing it with lines where you blend the lines to create a grid like this. I think it's faster if you just go ahead, and we'll go ahead and establish it as that thickness like that. I'll go ahead and zoom in. So once you have, let's say you want to do a square proportional type of badge or design, if you're just trying to use a grid to create a design, just in this case, a square. And then you go object, path, and we're going to go split into grid. It'll bring up this number or this pop-up menu. You just establish how many rows. Let's say it's 20, and how many columns. We'll do 20. This ensures it'll be squares. And then you could go preview, see what it looks like. That's what it does for you. It's a lot faster than kind of creating your own grid. If you use this, you can also turn on add guides, and it'll add guides. Now, I never do that, so I'm not going to do that here. We'll click OK. Not only is this a good way to establish a grid, and obviously you can color this whatever you want. Maybe you wanted it, all these outlines, more of a, you know, light blue. You could do that. That way it just kind of guides whatever you're doing on top. But if it wasn't light blue, the thing is this also a great way to build like 8-bit kind of pixel art to do that. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. I want to focus on, though, is I saw these two within your explorations, and I kind of like this, and I think you meant this to be a PPL, maybe? I wasn't quite sure, but I was thinking that. The only thing I don't like on this is on the wing here, you have this circular thing. I'm not sure why you did that. So I'm going to show you what I would have done, because I think it just makes the design a little stronger. Is I'm going to take these and I'm just going to move these in kind of like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, because what we're going to end up doing is I did an offset from this shape here to create this. And I'll take that and I'll just trim it. And I think that reinforces kind of the shape on the interior. And then on this, you know, I would just have this start right at the edge of where that gap, so that gap reads all the way up through. And I'd do that on the opposite side as well. So I'd select this, copy it, or clone it, that is, go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point, assuming this is center, and then I'd reflect it over. And then you could do the same thing over here, where I would just move that up to kind of align with the gap on this side as well. So it's those kind of things. I just think improved design is paying attention to that. And I might even consider these gaps, this gap, this gap, and this gap all being the same. So you're using a tolerance that sets a standard and it ties in a design really well. But I kind of like this design. I really like this one down here. Not sure where you're going with this, but I think this has a lot of potential. The one thing I noticed is you have a lot of extra anchor points here. Now, all of these are on a straight line, but notice these paths, these Bezier handles are pulled out. Even on this one, you have it pulled out here. So what I would do is I'd select all these. I usually select them like this, and I go retract handles. That way those handles are gone, but let's undo that. I'll just do it on these, and I'll retract them. Now, if you want to retract in Illustrator natively, you would just select the handle associated with it, go to the anchor point tool, click on this, and it will go away. But I think all these can be removed. So since they're on a straight line, you don't have to worry about messing your art. Just go up to the control panel, which you should have on. You can just turn that on by having control turned on here. And then you can go minus to remove those. And it's always a good idea to clean your art as you're building it. I'm not sure. Yeah, you have one here. So again, I would just retract these handles like that. And on this one, you can just remove it. And I just do the same thing anywhere else where you have extra anchors like this. You'd want to go in and retract these handles and then remove the anchors like that. So I just wanted to cover that really quickly, but I do like this design. I encourage you to do something with it because it's a nice motif. Works well. So here's some additional badges that Annis did that I really like. I don't know what the meaning is here, but I think the style's kind of cool. I like how you handled it. I like that you showed a black and white and you have different color explorations. The one in the top right, this one, I think the lines kind of detract from the art. I like the colors used on the bottom three the best, but I thought that was pretty creative. So that's cool. Let's take a look at another one. This is by Bernice Gull. Hopefully I pronounce your last name right, Bernice. I like the idea of this design. I almost think the circular aspect is fighting against the hexagram. I would have liked you to try to pull this off reinforcing that that hexagram. Is it a hexagram or it's not a pentagram? So, or is it a pentagram? Oh man, I'm forgetting my geometry. Anyway, the shape you see when you look at a beehive and the honeycombs, I would have played off of that shape. The other thing is you want to watch out when you're wrapping type on paths, and I think you run into it here, is you don't want to use italic typefaces on a curved path. It just almost looks like they're falling over. And you want to be careful about using cursive fonts in a badge. It makes a lot harder to read what's going on the outside. And you kind of have a dead spot down here. So it's also about making it read correctly, but figuring out how to do it. So you might want to break up a long thing like this into 2 sentences, have it start on the top, read out one way, break it where it makes sense, and then continue the other part of the statement down below. Then you could put like a bullet on each side to separate it graphically. So those are the things I'd keep in mind. Maybe these outlines are a little too bold on the wings. I'm not even sure they should have that outline on it. You might want to change the color on that. But other than that, I thought this was an okay idea. It's just, I'd work it out so it forces you to figure out how to handle the text in the shape of the beehive honeycombs instead of a circle within another shape. I think it competes too much doing that. Here's one Brian did, and some of you guys kind of focused on branding people love, and although I don't mind that. I wish you guys would have focused on coming up with an idea of your own on whatever else you want to do. Don't feel obligated to cater it to me. You guys don't need to do that. I want you to, it's always easier to focus on something you like theme-wise to create and to come up with ideas on. I love the shape of the badge. I just don't think the structure on the inside with all the typography is really kind of taking advantage of the badge. I'm not sure what the title is here. Is it Participation Recognition, or is it Creative Challenge 3? It's kind of competing for the hierarchy. And with a badge, you need distinct visual hierarchy from the elements and the typography's sake. You want people to read what they should read first, what they should read second, what they should read third. Kind of like how I broke down the hierarchy of type on that wild organ badge design I showed you. So I would just maybe think about that the next time you're doing a badge. Let's take a look at Maria's badge design. I love this. I love how simple it is. I like the colors she chose. This is a fun badge. And I like the background color as well. And I flood coated the background just so it really stands out well. So good job, Maria, on this badge design. Here's one from David I really like. I think he did a good job of encapsulating everything here. The only thing on this, and it just depends on usage and the final usage and context, I like the look of the lines on the inside of the type. I'm just wondering if they might be a little too thin to hold up when they're printed at smaller sizes. Other than that, I think it works well. So that's good. The other thing is, I think it works extremely well transferring it to a one color context. So that was done really, really well. And when you do a perimeter outline of color, it makes doing that so much easier. You just take everything black, and that shows through, as you did here, to the background, somebody making Fila pastry. So really well done. Really, really handled well. I love the laurel in it, and everything just holds up really well on this design. Now, Annis went back and did the Year of the Dragon design. So he came up with these dragon designs, which I thought were cool. He had ones with eyeballs, but I like the ones without the eyeballs in it. I think it looks a little more menacing, like I expected dragon to be. So the only thing with this is, I think when it comes to gradients, a deft touch, meaning don't overdo it, always works better than to put gradients on everything. Because I like the look and feel of these, but I think the gradients detract a little bit from it. So I might pull some of those out and use it in a more minimal way with gradients, just because flat colors will complement gradients. So I'd only use it where it makes sense. But I like the typography and the overall motif. Here's one by Jack Suter. Now, Jack couldn't get around to doing the final art. I showed you the sketch when we did the Year of the Dragon. Well, he finally got his artwork done. He sent it in. This is unbelievably cool. So really, really well done, Jack. I love the details. I love all the elements in it. It's cool. You did a great job. So no problem whatsoever for any of you. If you want to go back and do any of these challenges that you might have missed, by all means do so and send me what you create, because I'll feature you in the next video that we go in on the next creative challenge. If you have an idea for a future creative challenge, let me know. I spend a lot of time developing the content for this channel, so I do hope it helps you in your own creative endeavors. If you ever have a question, please don't hesitate to post in the comments of any of the movies on People of Process. I always answer them, and others can learn from them as well. And that's why I like that. If you need to email me, you can do that as well. You can find the email for People of Process in the description below every movie on the channel. Until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.